Like, what is to educate the public? How do you do that? It's like you really have to dig down deep and try to think about how you're going to tackle those very. There's no direct solution to it. It's a plan of attack, I suppose, tactics, if you will, strategy, and that's a whole lot easier said than done. Trying to get that ball rolling. But to me, it's like everything relies on the fact that the bottom line is what's in the glass. Do people like what's in the glass? You know, is it sweet, dry? What does it really matter? If they like it, you have something you can sell. If they don't like it, then maybe for not the right price point, then it's like, well, you got to kind of contemplate that quite a bit, and really that's a big risky item, especially when things aren't known. People don't know what it is. You have to do all that. You know, beer doesn't have to sell it on the concept of what beer is. Wine doesn't have to sell that concept. Cider, for the most part, doesn't have to sell what it is. But mead, for the most part, the general populace, they're like, I don't even know what that word means. So, you know, in order for us to get our product into everyday drink for a lot of different people, you know, there's not very few people do I see go, this is not a product for me. They just may not like the sweeter side or the drier side, but almost everybody can say, you guys make some pretty interesting and very tasty things, and then they were pleasantly surprised. And I think that's just been that's the key thing. You know, they could be a terrible band with the best name in the world, doesn't really matter. But you can be the best band in the world with a terrible name. That name will stick, and you'll still be a great band. Yeah, it's a similar kind of thing. You still got to have the je ne sais quoi of a good product.
Yeah. Yeah. The focus on quality product is absolutely number one, and that's really what it takes, because you know everybody can recognize a quality mead, and then people might try one of our meads and decide that it's not their favorite, but because we have high quality product, they're willing to come into our tap room, and everybody, when they come in to our tap room, they're going to find something that they like. I mean, nobody leaves empty-handed from the hive.
Nice.
Well, that's the thing with mead. That's why it's so hard for them to distribute it, is because there's so many different ways it can be done. And you can't say it's like wine, or you can't say it's like beer, because it could be, or it could be completely different from either, or both.
Right, I definitely have some corked stuff that is completely different, the opposite end of the spectrum from our, dry session draft mead. They're two totally different animals. Absolutely. And people like...
Yeah, and under the regulations, they'll put all the stuff on the same place in the same shelf.
Yeah. And they try to categorize it, and it's like, but it
Mead really defies categorization.
It does, and I think that's
probably one of the biggest drawbacks and hurdles that you have to face, I would imagine, is that mead just doesn't fit nicely into the little square hole.
Mm-hmm. Well, for the TTB, it confuses the daylights out of them.
Yes, God, you want him to start
Anybody wants to see what it's like working with the TTB, just watch the AMMA feed for a few days.
Oh man, it's just fiery hoops you have to jump through, and you don't get to move them. You just have to sprint through it all in order to get the process done. There's really not a whole lot of leveraging to be able to change anything. So you're just like, that's the way they are. You just have to do it that way. And slowly but surely we'll get a large wave pushing one topic at a time and try to get that nailed out. So I appreciate the MMA putting a lot of time and effort in the legislative aspects of what they're doing to change these things little bit by little bit. Chip away at the giant rock. Eventually we'll crack it.
Yeah. Well, and they're making progress. I mean, you guys can call it Mead now, which was something we couldn't do a few years ago. So that's one, I think, giant step for Mead kind. Is being able to say that and put it on the bottle and make that a good thing. The other thing that I tell a lot of my clients, and pretty much any meadery that I work with or talk to, is have that gateway mead, that one that is that crossing gate for people who have no clue about what mead really is, something that'll be easy for them to assimilate and say, oh my gosh, this is really awesome, what else do you have, and and to get them going on what mead is. Because I did a farmer's market for a summer for a local North Carolina meadery, and that was one of the things I ran into, was a certain level of resistance from wine drinkers who have that perception that honey equals sweet. And and therefore it must be this sickly sweet. And I what I ran into was I'd ask them, what kind of wines do you drink? And they go, red or white, and it was like, really? What kind of red or white? Just red or white? And he's like, oh my God. How do we even? I can't even, So
the simple answer to is, well, if it contains honey, it must be sweet. Well, you've tasted grape juice. How does wine compare to that?
Mm-hmm. And that was usually what I told them. And I had my little patter down was mead can be everything from champagne dry to tooth numbingly sweet and everything in between, and can have any number of 100 different ingredients in addition to the honey, and it's so versatile that you can't even begin to categorize it because it's infinitely changeable. And that usually they're like, wow, it's not like we've got 26 grape varieties, here you go. We've got 100 million combinations of honey, fruit, spices, vegetables, and and other things.
Oh, don't even, just the varietals in honey is a huge difference from one to another.
Exactly. So, getting people to realize that it literally is an endless taste sensation that, that you can never find the edges of is just, it's a lot of fun helping people find that. It really is.
That's perhaps the fun of doing all the experimentation is, like, I have a concept in my head, and a lot of times I'll make it and won't really have any necessary fermentation flaws, but, definitely have recipe flaws. Sometimes you're like, that really didn't work out. I have to try a different technique to try to get that flavor out of that chocolate or cacao nibs or whatever you're going to use to try to get a flavor out of it. And that can go pretty south on you sometimes. You're like, well, that's kind of wasted. But batting average for me is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with about 70% of what I've made as far as like the crazy experimental batches. But there's that 30% you're just like, that's just not going to happen at all. And I ask everybody else, like, I kind of hate this. What do you guys think about it? And I'm like two people were like, yeah, I don't know about this. Like, good. I have good people on my side. It's not that great. Because I already know. I don't tell them I don't like it, but it's usually when I go ask some people about it, they're like, okay, he doesn't like it already because he's asking people about it.
Oh, Arkansas is requesting that y'all send your mead there. We got Stephen Rigsby, Evolving Caveman, is saying we need some of that mead in Arkansas. We're in a mead desert here.
I imagine. Wow.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, there's not a lot going on in Arkansas for mead. So, y'all need to distribute to Arkansas. I need to hurry up now. Y'all just get on over there.
Work on it.
So mote it be.
Yeah.
That's pretty close. That's only 500 miles from us. So.
I know, right? Well, you are kind of the next state over, more or less, so.
Exactly.
I mean, granted, it's a pretty big state, but still.
Yeah.
6 hours to get out of the state from Austin, pretty much. That's probably the shortest direction out of the state.
Yeah.
6 hours. Takes a while. Soon.
Yeah. So we were talking on Back to Basics, which is our second half of the show. We talk about mead making and techniques and ideas, and it's just basically this is the part where we get back into the making of the mead kind of thing. And I was telling Eric, Mike, that what we're doing, we do 8 episode sections, and then we take a 2-week break, and then do 8 more episodes. And we're just starting today as episode 1 of this segment. And what AJ and I had talked about doing was talking about styles and mead types and approaches in this particular segment. And Eric and I kind of talked around it, and he said you guys are huge on balance. That balance was a really big principle for you in your mead making, and that the style that jumped out for Eric was bochets. Apparently, you guys are exploring bochets.
We haven't done a commercial one yet. I think we've done a number of different bochets. Not only how we caramelize the honey, whether or not we add that as a component into another blend of honey for like a recipe formulation of I'm just trying to either get some darker color, some light herbs or something along that line to just experiment with different things. I've tried to go as dark as like some Belgian candy sugar levels, and that didn't turn out very well because pitching the yeast and it pretty much scorched everything and it never started. So we've made the gamut, different kind of stuff. Eric's probably a little bit more formulaic with the temperatures. Probably might know a little bit more about the science, about what's happening with the inversion of the sugars. But that's definitely some things I've tried before in the past.
Okay. Well, we're hoping you guys will stick around to talk with us, and Dave, you too. Stick around and let's talk turkey with bochets and balance. And I know that's something that you guys are interested in, and just that kind of stuff. So I don't know. That's usually AJ's. AJ leads that segment, so to speak. I generally take a backseat to go into that, and I chip in when it's when I have something to contribute. But
try to get something we can both talk to, so that should be fun.
Okay, cool.
Great.
All right, Dave, you gonna stick around?
Yeah.
Cool. So you've done some bochets, haven't you?
Yeah, actually I have.
I thought so.
Well, good, you're one up on me.
Yeah. And this S'mores bomb had about maybe 10%, maybe not even 10% of the honey was scorched.
Right, to only do partial amount of it, where you kind of get that character from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured I'd try it when I do mine. I figured I'd try to do it in either a crock pot or in my Instant Pot and see, how that might work.
I just did it on the gas stove.
Yeah. Because I think Eric is. I think 242 is the temperature, I believe.
Yeah, 242 is what I do mine too. So that's like the bottom end of that's just past softball stage. I know that a lot of other bean makers who I've talked to, they swear by going to hardball stage, but you definitely don't want to go much past about 260 degrees Fahrenheit, or it's just you're gonna end up with something that's just completely and utterly burnt. But it's interesting the difference in character that you get. The ones that I've had where it's a hardball, it's more what we think is the classic Bochet character, where you get a little bit of the burnt honey character coming through, but it's not quite to the point of charcoal, and you get a really dark color, kind of like these reddish hues coming out of it. But what I like about the between the softball and the hardball stage, you get more of a caramel flavor, and that's why I do mine in that range, because you end up with something that's sort of the same effect that you get when you use crystal malt if you're brewing. So it's more of a caramel flavor and some that crystal malt flavor. So if you're trying to replicate a beer style like an IPA or something like that, I think the caramelized honey in that range is actually going to work really well.
Interesting. Do you notice that? I mean, is there a time frame that you leave it to caramelize? You're talking about getting to the 242, but is it like get to 242, take it off the heat, or do you leave it set for a while at that temperature?
Yeah, I've found that at that temperature range, if you don't have quite the color that you want, you can carefully let it cool down a little bit, add a little bit of water to it, and then bring it back up, and it'll continue to darken. So if you keep repeating that step, it'll get darker and darker, but that way you don't get that burnt ash flavor that I really don't care for myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't say I would have burnt ash either.
Yeah, because I remember seeing someone doing a video on YouTube, and they wait until you're getting smoke out of the bubbles from the boiling.
No, I've done that before. I would say that's not necessarily the best way to do that.
Yeah.
I would not recommend that.
Yeah, it's black smoke. I would say a good way to do it is by color. So a lot of times, if you're using for a lighter honey, you can take a piece of aluminum, and so when you boil honey, it usually expands 4 times. So you better not put a whole lot in a tall pot.
Oh, so this is like making beer then. Don't turn your back on it, right?
Up a lot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've made candy with honey, so I know that it burns a little earlier than sugar.
Okay.
It does, and you can dip it out, and if you put a droplet on like aluminum foil, it'll kind of crystallize, and you just put different droplets as you go progress along, and you could actually see it change the color side by side against the other drops as you go along with it. And you can, and if you're going to a mahogany color, most of the time that's a fairly rich color, so you can go by color almost.